Hello, everyone. I am Tartarus, and welcome to part two of how to use the Nightmare Friends and Cursed Friends guides. In part one, we focused on the comps guides for both game modes, showing you how to select your heroes, how to blacklist heroes you don't have, etc. This guide will take you through how to use the collections sheets. The collection sheets are set up identically for Nightmare Friends and Curse Friends. They just have wildly different data because they use very different heroes, and even the heroes that do overlap often take very different collections in the different game modes. Okay, so let's get started. Now, the first thing to look at on this collections guide is essentially um, the moddable version of this graphic that we had here. Um, if you go File, Make a Copy. So this information is the same information you see on the spreadsheet. It's the brief overview of each hero, but if you make a copy and you pop open these filters and this sorting, you can filter out whatever you need. So let's make this only sustenance heroes. Let's make it only dimensionals. Do we have any dimensional sustenance heroes? We're about to find out. One, Shuna. Um, so you can make this show you whichever sections you want. And then you can sort it however you want. The options for sorting are by class, by faction, by hero name, by usage, by release order. And you can sort, there are two sorts. You can sort it the first time, and then you can sort within that sorting. So when it's sorted by faction and then class, we're starting with might um, light bearers, and then we have sustenance light bearers. And then those are the only classes we have for light bearers. So now we're at might maulers, celerity maulers, mage maulers, etc. So let's say I want to sort this by usage, and I don't want the least used heroes. So let's flip this arrow up. It's now going to show me the most used heroes, the heroes that like all 1,600 people on the NC leaderboards used, or the heroes that all but one person used. There's one person who didn't use Thorin and Shaw, and I wonder if that's like the same person. This is a broad overview, as I said before. If you want to get the most specific information, you're going to pop open the hero viewer. Now, on this page, it just showed you the three most popular collections and the percentage it was used and one stat for each of those collections. The hero viewer gives you a lot more. So this page shows a more granular view. In addition to showing more than just the top three collections in popularity, it also shows you more information about these. So you can see what the average stats are on, for example, a +2 full erosion vault. Now you'll see here the full erosion number on these vaults is very, very high because players are trying to stack as much full erosion on the vault as possible. Whereas if you look at the defensive stats for these full erosion vaults, um, players don't focus them the same way. Their primary focus is the offensive one, and they're sort of, taking what they can get. So you'll see like 25% of the stats on a full erosion, on the sort of average full erosion vault, are going to be full defense. Now, if we looked here at, say, this full defense vault, you're going to see that very high number of players trying to stack full defense. Um, but you'll also see that this has a decent amount of full erosion. And these players playing this full defense vault, it's called a full defense vault because that is what the most predominant stat is. But the offensive stats match up with our most popular offensive stats for the vaults, for the collections overall. And so these people using this full defense vault are probably using the full defense vault because it happens to be their best full erosion vault. It happens to be their best full attack vault, even though the predominant stat on it is full defense, right? They may not have a really fantastic full erosion vault, or it could be a good full erosion vault. Maybe they have like 2 mythic full erosions and a legendary, but they happen to have like 3 mythic full defenses. Which means the way our calculations work, we would still count it as a full defense vault. So taking a look at sort of what stats are showing up on here can give you a better understanding of how people are using these collections. Um, we also provide a level breakdown for the particular collection. So the people who are running full erosion vaults, 94% of them are running +2 vaults. 98% of the people running full attack vaults are running +2 vaults. Um, Now, over here, we have the total usage distribution, which tells us how many people are using, +2 vaults altogether compared with all other collections and lack of collections, right? Of the 1,600 people, right? There's 1,600 people using Lava Tune. Every single player on the leaderboard in NC is using him. 68% of those people are using a vault that is a +2. That's out of 72% are using a vault altogether, and 68 of those are using a +2. When a 0% shows up on here, or any of these, maybe it means 0% and maybe it means it was rounded. So we can add some extra decimal places. And so this, like, what, technically one person, someone, at least someone was actually using a +2 flight. Um, but definitely not an actual popular thing. Now you can choose any hero you want on here and you can see their let me get rid of those extra decimal places before I do this. So let's pick Kalon. Now Kalon has both a lot fewer people using him and much more everyone's pretty much on the same page with what they're using. Um, there are none of the other collections on here. You're not seeing Judgment Armor. You're not seeing Sandstorm Fangs because literally no one is using them. And if you want to see how much people are using a +2, yeah, these 0% are actual 0%. Out of the 336 people who used Kalon in NC this week, every single one of them, all 336, were using a +2 blade. Most of them were using a CDA blade. Some of them were using an attack blade. Notice even on the attack blade, the secondary offensive stat is CDA and the third stat is crit. So they were probably using this attack collection with CDA or crit in mind, or just because they didn't have any CDA or crit. To switch us over to Orthros's collection page, and here you'll see when I said total usage distribution included all collections and lack of collections. Um, we do see some people still using Orthros without a collection. This used to be a very, very popular meta choice and then was overtaken by the release of Anoki's Horn. And but there are still times where someone will use no collection. Sometimes it'll be because they're using a trial hero. No collection is very popular when a trial hero is out because Obviously, you can't put a collection on them, but also people sometimes drop a collection from various heroes for different reasons. Um, with Orthros, it was trying to get his health lower. Sometimes you see it with Adrian and Elise for similar reasons, usually in Cursed Realm. Um, it's something that comes in and out of the meta, and we display those numbers too. And this is also a good example of how a 0% can be 0%, or it can be just less than 1%. So these 0% are like zero point 0.4, zero point 0.3, and then these are genuinely no one's doing it. Obviously, because you can't have a +2 no collection. That's impossible. Um, so this is a hero viewer. It is the most detailed look at a hero and its specific collections. We will try to put out images for this when there is a new hero and collections information about that hero is brand new. But there are obviously a lot of freaking heroes, and we cannot print um like a gazillion pages when we're putting out the guides on Reddit. So we just do the very brief overview and encourage you to come to these sheets and actually use the sheets properly. We also have Team Viewer. This is a bit of a mix between a Hero Viewer and Collections by Hero. It's giving you the top 3 collections and their stats. It's also giving you the total usage breakdown. And the idea of the formatting of this page is that it's supposed to be very easy for you to put in a specific team, like let's say Orthros, Palmer, Knox, um, Laos, and who else goes on this team? Liberta. Um, and so you can very quickly like put on a team and be looking at the entire team's collections at once. You can use it however you want. That's just sort of what we envisioned in terms of players using it. We have actually three other ways to look at collections and help determine what collections go where, and then also what collections you should be building. So we have this global collection viewer. On this page, you can look at a collection's broad use overall. So let's say if we look at Sandstorm Fangs, that does not have a whole lot of usage. Also, Sebo, there are NAs on this sheet that we're going to have to fix. Ignore the NAs, everyone. They will be fixed in a few minutes. So this is not a very popular thing. Only 129 usages of it altogether. Most of them were going on Jinwoo. Now, if we pop back over to Horn of Dominion, you'll see there were over 2,000 usages of the Horn of Dominion. And almost all of them are on Orthros, followed by Estrilda. You can see what the level distribution is for that particular hero. You can see what the offensive and defensive stat distribution is. Vethiel is getting these health horns because all of his stats scale off of health, for example. Orthros and Awakened Estrilda are getting full attack because they're trying to buff the other heroes in their comp. Full attack's a very popular stat on this one. Now we can switch over to, say, Judgment Armor, or where is Blade? Shadow Flow Blade. Shadow Flow Blade, you can see, is the most popular Celerity collection. And the most popular stat on it is CDA. Some of these collections will have like a lot of variety in terms of what stats are most popular. Some not so much. Um This gives you like a good understanding of who's using which collections and what stats they're using. This is a great way to get an overview understanding of a particular collection. If you want a more specific understanding, we also have the stat specific collection viewer. Again, just like the global collection viewer, you are choosing a particular collection. Like let's say, let's put Stormwrath's Lull on here. This is showing you all of the people who use Stormwrath's Lull. Aurelia is the most popular and she gets erosion. After that is Marcia with attack. After that is Damia again with an erosion collection. But if we want to look at a stat specific lull, we can look at, say, the erosion lull, and we're not going to see the heroes that are using attack. We're seeing Aurelia, Damia, and Skrioth are the most important ones getting this erosion collection. This is especially helpful if you do not have a whole lot of slots on a collection. The more runs you do, the more slots you unlock. But for a lot of collections, you may not make a lot of um, copies of the collection, especially newer collections. You may not have a lot of slots unlocked. You can also be in the weird position of getting really lucky, and instead of taking you 15 tries to get an attack Stormwrath's Lull, you get it on the first try, and then you're like, I don't know what else to run, but I need to run something. I only have 2 slots on this. Um, so if you're dealing with a collection that is very important for a lot of heroes, this is a great way to figure out which heroes need it the most. Without going through the hero viewer over and over and over again. So if I have an erosion lull and I only have 2 slots on it, they're probably going to go to Aurelia and Damia. Um, at the very least, I'm going to try Aurelia, Damia, and Skrioth. I'm going to ignore everyone else, and I'm going to see which of these 3 need it the most. Now, these 3 all happen to just need erosion. So if I have some other erosion collection, I can then test and see which one of these need the lull version the most. Or let's say I want to look at an attack lull. Marcial is by and away the most important person to get this attack lull. So I know to put it on her first. And then Saren Mira, if I'm playing Saren Mira. If I'm not playing Saren Mira, then it's telling me there's not a whole lot of difference in terms of who else I use this on. So if I've got multiple slots on here, and I'm trying to fill in for, let's say, not having enough erosion collections or not having enough full attack or some other collection where the lull is more important than the actual stat. I know my attack collection is a good one to fill in on because it's not in huge demand here. So you can look at collections by hero. You can look at collections by the collection overall. You can look at collections by the collection and the specific primary stat. And then we also have this broad overview, filterable, sortable page, and the team viewer, which is a bit of a combination of collections by hero and hero viewer. The last thing we have is this collections ranking sheet. Now, this is not really intended for you to figure out what collections to play on which heroes. It's trying to give you an understanding of what collections are the most popular, have the most usage, and what heroes need them. This is a great way to figure out what you need to build. The sheet is sorted by raw count, which means the total usages of that collection, which is not necessarily the same thing as the number of players using it. And we can see this right away at the top. Over 95% of people who are playing NC are using a CDA Shadow Flow Blade. Only about 83% of people are using a +2 bounty. But those 83% of people are using more slots on that +2 bounty than this 95% of people are using slots on this CDA blade. Maybe that's because they don't have as many slots on the CDA blade as they do on the bounty. Maybe it's whatever. But there are a lot more usages of this bounty. There are a lot more heroes using it. And then, so you can see the most popular one the most used collection is this +2 bounty, followed by the +2 blade, followed by this +2 vault. Um, and so this gives you a good understanding of what are the most in demand and impactful collections, who needs them. You will obviously see heroes on here multiple times because a lot of heroes can take multiple different collections and have a lot of different popularity. Some heroes you'll only really see on here once, like Misha, who is everyone is building this defense flight for her. It is a collection that she needs 80 to 90% of the time. No one else really needs it, but Misha needs it, and it's pretty much the only thing she needs. So this is a great way to help you sort of figure out what collections are rising in popularity, which ones are dropping in popularity and being replaced, how that relates to the heroes you're playing. Like, you know, if you don't have, Kalon or Jinwoo or Crassio, like you may have less concerns about having a fantastic blade if you are just missing a bunch of the heroes using it. Um, and something this page and all of the pages features are these little green and yellow bars next to collections. So if you see this little green line here next to this +1 cover, it's indicating that just because that the +1 cover is the most popular version of this collection used, but that a large enough people are using it without a +1 that we think you can probably get away without it. Not necessarily for all of these heroes all of the time, but just that the +1 is probably not critical in most instances. This is more accurate when we're actually looking at the guides specific to this week, like the collections by hero, which is giving you what these specific heroes are playing, right? If you looked at Jerome on the hero viewer page, you would see that while 27% are using a +1 cover, 20% are using a +0 cover. That's a pretty sizable percentage. Of the people specifically using a full attack cover, 43% of those people are using +0, 46% are using +1. This indicates that the +1 skill, which in this case is a cheat death, is probably not necessary. It's popular. A lot of players have it because in a lot of other contexts, like cheat death is necessary. You know, put Jerome in Cursed Realm in a bunch of rounds, and he's going to want a cheat death. But here in this usage in NC, he doesn't need it. And so you can get away without having it. So on these truncated pages like collections by hero and team viewer, let's replace layouts with Jerome, you'll see these little bars indicating that while the +1 is the most predominant option, we don't think it's necessary. The yellow bar indicates that enough people are using a +1 instead of a +2 that we don't think +2 is necessary. And the green bar indicates that enough people are using a +0 instead of either a +1 or a +2 that we don't think any additional levels are necessary. Now, obviously, you have to test it out and see. Not everyone is using the same hero in the same team. It may be team dependent, and some of these heroes have a lot of flexibility. It may also depend on the investment of the hero or other heroes in the team or something else specific to your comp or your setup. But this is just sort of a good way to indicate on this team viewer and hero viewer, not a hero viewer, on the team viewer and collections by hero page and collection ranking, the sort of broad overview pages that try to condense a lot of data, like when you should maybe like look into it and see, does he really, really need the +1 or can he get away without it? Um, that's also always a good indicator to just sort of go look at the hero viewer and see what the actual numbers are. So yeah, this has been the collections guide. We have a bunch of pages for you to figure out different collections. The only other things on this is we've got a little bit of fun stuff. The Nightmare Corridor guides feature this boss history that, like everything else, is filterable and sortable. So if I want to, you can use this to sort of like take a historical look at what bosses have been in NC. You can also use it to take a look at a particular boss. So we can see the Devourer was here from June 2024, cycle 17, and finished in November 2024, cycle 22. And you can see which weeks had which buffs, who he was paired against in terms of other bosses, right? He entered with Conrad as boss one, and he left with, what is this, Wraith Weaver as boss six? I don't know the names of all the bosses. I think I'm pretty close. If you do want to know the names of all the bosses, oh, demonic. Wait, what was that one? It was Wraith Weaver. I do know the names of all the bosses. I'm awesome. If you do want to know the names of all the bosses, we have this handy dandy boss list that we update every time they release a new NC boss. It tells you what number boss it is, their name, a little condensed version of their lore written by me with as minimal amount of sarcasm as is possible. It also shows you their faction and what their game history is. So a lot of these bosses were bosses that had never been seen in the game before and were unique to NC, but not all of them. Some were previously in specific events, like the Swamp Corruptor was in Awakened Baden's Elemental Strife story, The War of Truth, or Darkness Rising was in Fledgling's Flight, and that was the Aureus release event where we got to hatch those little dragons. Some of these have been used a lot. So Gul'das was the main boss for seasons 1 and 2 of Abex. He was the boss of the Chasmic Altar, and he featured in seasons 10 to 12 of Temporal Rift. So yeah, this is just like a fun little thing for you to look at. And then also there is, and I don't know why it's hidden, this reward list. This is on both the Nightmare guides and the Curse guides, obviously with their different rewards. And you can see the rewards for each rank, and you can also filter them if you want to see just the diamond rewards or just the legends top 50 or just the bait rewards. Um, you can change the sort order. You can do whatever you want. I don't know why you would need to filter or sort this page, but we made everything else filterable and sortable, so I felt we should just continue the trend. And so yeah, these are our guides. There is the team guide and the comps guide and the collections guide for both Cursed and Nightmare, and they're released 3 times a week. You can always see what the latest update is on the live page. And in fact, you can just go ahead and bookmark this live page, and then just come straight back to it. If you are coming straight to our guides from a bookmark, we would very much like it if you clicked on like one of these Reddit links and threw us an upvote for our latest post. And the votes help new players find our guides. They help us get traction, and it's very helpful to us. If you can, just click, throw us a upvote. If I have told you way, way, way too much information and you're like, man, I'm not going to remember it all, this instruction page that I'm fairly convinced no one has ever read in the history of this guide contains a very brief overview of everything I have told you. It explains to bookmark the guide and then make a copy. It explains the filter and sorting options. It explains what page types we have for the collection guides, what page types we have for the comps guides, which page types are on both of the sets of guides. It even has like the little notes explaining the little bar, green and yellow bars for collections on the brief um, overview pages. This has a typo I'm going to need to fix. A broad overview. That's how you know no one else has ever used this instructions page. I wrote it and no one appreciated it. Obviously, you can rewatch this video whenever you want, but it's kind of long and I did ramble. So if you're just looking for a brief overview, use the instructions page. It is pretty useful. It also links to all of the live guides and reminds you about the guide history page. If you need help with this guide, if you have suggestions for new features, if you have found a bug or a typo or anything else, join our Discord, hit us up, say, hey, I think there's a bug with this, or hey, have you considered adding this feature? Um, we are making these for you. We have spent an embarrassing number of hours building these guides. Um, if there's stuff we can add that would be useful for you, please tell us. Um, whether it's new features or changing the design to clarify things. We literally just changed the design of the collections guide today to make the data on the levels for collections much easier to understand. So you can always contact us. You can contact us on Reddit as well. We take messages, we try to read comments, and also on Discord. Hopefully, this gives you a better understanding of the massive infrastructure of these guides and how you can use them to personalize whatever it is you need. Blacklist heroes, lock heroes in, check the detailed collections for every single hero in game. Um, we've made these editable and sortable and filterable by you so that you can use them as best as possible. One last note before I go. If you have gotten to the live version of the page and you see this sign, just pause, come back in 5 minutes, 15 minutes. We're doing 3 versions of the guide a week, but we didn't want to have to constantly be giving you new URLs. So this live guide gets entirely overwritten 3 times a week. And we pop up this sign so that you don't make a copy of it while we are deleting the old data and putting the new data in. Because if you do, best case scenario, you got us at the very tail end and you're just opening the guide and are confused because all of these hidden pages you're not supposed to see or click on are up and you're like, why am I looking at 8,000 numbers? Worst case scenario, literally nothing works because there is no data in the guide because you happen to copy it right as I deleted the old data and have not imported the new data. So we try to be pretty vigilant about popping this banner up anytime we are working on the live sheets. We try to do it as little as possible. We have whole separate copies of these sheets just for making the printed versions so that we don't have to mess around on the live ones. Um, we do all of the new programming on other sheets and then load it onto here. But we do have to update these guides pretty regularly. New data 3 times a week. Every time a new hero is released, we have to add the new hero to the guide, like the pictures of it and so on. So if you see under construction, come back 15 minutes later. If that banner has been up for more than a little bit, you can tag us and say like, hey, did you forget to put the banner down? Which we may have, or we may be having some sort of problem, but these guides are available 24/7. You can always check the latest updates before we even post to Reddit. And it's under construction very, very little of the time. I just want to, have that warning so you don't copy it and be like, why does nothing work? Because the answer is there is no data in your guide. It is empty. Yeah, so hopefully this helps. And give us a comment below. Tell us if this made things clear, if you're confused about things, any sort of feedback. All right. Thanks, everyone.